And welcome back. We have a 1997 Honda Accord with a 2.2 liter VTEC engine, and I just purchased this car, but it's not for me. It's actually for my cousin. He used to have a Ford Mustang, and I have a few videos on that car. So if you're interested in watching the repairs that I did on that one, I'll leave a link to it at the end of this video. But long story short, the transmission ended up going out on it. He took it to the junkyard, got a hefty $200 for the Mustang. So I picked this car up for him dirt cheap at $575, and any car that you buy that cheap, you would expect that you have to put some money into it. So as you can see, we're at 250,000 miles, but it's actually higher than that because this gauge stopped working and the previous owner believes it's closer to 300,000. Now I drove this car home and surprisingly it drove very smooth for its age and the amount of miles that it has on it. Now this video isn't going to be like my previous videos. It's not a complete DIY. It's just all the repairs I'm doing to getting the car ready for him. So I'm just going to kind of fly through everything real quick. And the whole point of it is just to make the car more reliable and safer for him because he does live pretty far away from me and it's so inconvenient to be driving back and forth every time a repair needs to be done. As you heard a few seconds ago, whenever you turn on the fan, the blower motor just makes all kinds of noise, so I'm suspecting it's gonna need a new blower motor. You've seen the radio, the face doesn't want to stay on, the tab is broken, so it's gonna need a new radio. And obviously the carpet is stained. It looks like maybe someone spilled some soda right there, but I'm gonna let my cousin take care of that. I'm sure he's capable of cleaning the interior and it should be okay after that. And now let's take a look underneath the hood. So I got it running right now. The first thing I noticed is that there's a brand new EGR valve and there is a code stored on this car for insufficient flow. So I will take care of that later. It's not a big deal. One other thing that I noticed is that there's always a puddle of coolant right here no matter how many times I clean it. Now the crimps right on top of the radiator always seem to be wet, so I'm suspecting that there's a leak there and we're gonna have to replace that radiator. The valve cover is always leaking, as you can see from all the dirt that's just stuck to it. You know, it's a good sign that it is leaking. Same thing that goes for the VTEC solenoid. It's just really dirty and like moist around here. So I'm suspecting also we're gonna have to replace the gaskets on the VTEC solenoid. And this is where the car sat overnight. As you can see, it is dripping oil, so it's something we're gonna have to look into as well. So with the old blower motor out, just kind of took it apart to see what's really going on, and it's just a worn out motor. There's way too much play in here. So here I have a replacement, and it's actually pretty easy to remove and install. Okay, so that loud noise is completely gone. The new blower motor is working great. But something that's weird, I'm not sure if it's just a coincidence, but the blower motor resistor also went out when it was just working not long ago. So I don't know what's up with that, but in any case, we changed it out and everything seems to be working well now. It seems like the previous owners didn't really care about maintaining the car. They were just basically running it to the ground. So it looked like it needed brakes, so I put new rotors and pads on it. Now on the left side of the car right here, it actually needed a brand new caliper because the caliper was seized. After removing the ignition wires, I could see that there's oil making its way into the spark plug area. So I kind of expected this, and this is why I ended up buying the whole valve cover kit, because it also includes the new seals which would prevent the oil from getting in there. Now I couldn't get these perfectly cleaned out, but here's kind of a before and after. And here's a comparison of the old spark plugs next to the new ones. I'm not sure how many miles are on them, so I just thought it was a good idea to change them out. Now I have two gasket sets in front of me, and the reason for that is the first set I ordered was the wrong one. I did not pay attention to the details, and I actually ordered for a 2.2 liter non-VTEC, which did not fit this application. So I'm not sure how many people are watching this video that have this same exact car, but if you have this same 2.2 liter engine that's non-VTEC, I'll be more than glad to send you that gasket set. All you would have to do is pay for shipping and it's yours. The valve cover was really bothering me, so I'm just going to go ahead and give it a quick cleaning. And I know what you're thinking, why didn't I just clean it while it was off of the car? Honestly, I didn't think about it at that time. At any rate, I think it could benefit from a fast cleaning. It's nothing special, but I think it turned out great. I expected changing the gaskets on the VTEC solenoid to go by pretty fast, but given its location, it's actually pretty difficult to try to get your ratchet in to get the lower bolts off, so it took a lot more time than I expected. And here's why the solenoid was leaking so much oil. Not only is the gasket completely flattened out, but it's very brittle. As you can see, it just snaps in half. And here's the lower part of the solenoid, which is exactly the same case. The gasket's completely flattened out, and again, it's brittle. But this is the one that was very difficult to get out. I had a hard time trying to get my ratchet down there. And here's my regular 1/4 inch ratchet. Here goes its length, and I actually had to go out and buy this ratchet. You could see its length compared to my original one. Another thing is that the head, they're about the same height. But if you notice, the socket on the small ratchet is just slightly shorter, and that's what I needed to get this job done. It was almost to the point where I was ready to cut the socket in half. And looking at this filter, it doesn't look too good, so I can't imagine how much oil was actually getting past that filter. So like anything else, I'm just going to go ahead and give these parts a quick cleaning. With the solenoid out of the way, we can actually see how much oil was leaking out of here and the mess that it caused. It looked like it was just leaking right down the transmission bell housing. And if we go look underneath the car, you can see where it was just leaking right off, and that was one of the main areas where we were getting an oil leak from. And there isn't much to mention about this. It's just a standard oil change and everything went well. And now it's time to drain out the old antifreeze so we could fill up the system with some brand new antifreeze. We're going to change the thermostat for good measure, and replace the leaking radiator. Now the radiator proved to be a bit more of a challenge than I expected, mainly because of the lower radiator hose. The clamp that's holding it in place is almost in an impossible place to reach it. So it's that one thing that really made the job a lot harder than it had to be. But of course, at the end of the day, we ended up getting it done. I think this is the first time I ever had to go at a thermostat with a hammer just to get it off. This thing was on there pretty good. Now here's something that I wasn't really expecting. The rubber seal on the thermostat is actually broken and it's caught in between the thermostat. So what this would cause is the thermostat to not completely close. So with that, your car would never really get up to operating temperature, and maybe even the air that blows out of your dash doesn't really get as hot as it's supposed to. At best, you would get warm air. So it's not a massive improvement, but I did try to clean up the housing just to try to get some of that crusty stuff off. Here's the lower radiator hose that I mentioned earlier. Now I could have really used a second person at this point, but since I'm here alone, I had to come up with a solution. So I grabbed my pliers and I used them to hold down the clamp, and I got a zip tie on the pliers to hold them in place while I push the radiator hose onto the radiator. And now it's time to put everything back together so we could bleed the system. Now I did notice that this air tube is torn right here. We'll deal with that later on. And that's it for part 1. So if you're interested in seeing more, make sure you stick around. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're considering subscribing, don't forget to hit that notification bell. And like always, thanks for watching.